So you expect Zwinak may not be full contact at the start of camp?
Yeah, you can't put him. He's your starting tailback. You go right away. First of all, the first 5 days you don't hit at all really anyway. That much because the first 2 days you're in no pads, and then you're allowed to wear shoulder pads the next 3 days. But you're still not like full contact. So maybe by the second week he'd be able to do things. We got it's like I've said over and over again for the next 3-4 years. We've got to do a great job of monitoring our players so that they're healthy when they get to the game.
How do you do that with the 65? Because if you lose 1 or 2, that's the equivalent of maybe losing 3 or 4 somewhere else.
No question. And so what you have to do is every single day, every minute of the day as a head football coach, you have to make sure that you're in tune with the health of your football team. And if you think that you've got a great kid, which most, all these guys are really hard-working kids, and they tell you that they're hurting a little bit, then you taper it down a little bit for that individual kid. And then maybe you do it for the whole team, So, I have a little bit of experience from my NFL experience with that, and maybe it's a night walkthrough instead of having a night practice, things like that. Maybe it's maybe a little bit less 9-on-7, maybe another 7-on-7 that's no contact, And you just have to do a great job of because there's nothing more important than the health of your team.
What has Fitz told you about how Zwinak's been coming along?
They're not allowed to report to us exactly on how they are coming along, but the kids stop by the office. And Zach, I've seen him 3 or 4 times over the summertime, and he says, according to him, he's ahead of schedule. So. But he looks to be, that way, and so, we would expect him to be probably a little bit ahead of schedule.
Does that drive you kind of nuts that the coaches can't, or the strength guys can't tell you how somebody's coming along health-wise? I mean, it seems kind of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems kind of... Go ahead. I'm teeing it up for you.
No, I think one of the things, we've talked about this as a group of Big Ten coaches. I do believe that that we should be able to work with our kids a little bit in the summertime. And as it relates to football, I mean, you can talk to the kids, but you can't meet with your quarterbacks. You can't meet with your offensive line, defensive, whatever. And you can't get any reports on their conditioning levels, strength gains from your weight staff, because that's just the way it is. So we follow those rules to a T. We try to, and so that's just that. Those are the rules. So that's what we do.
Bill, you raised the possibility in there of Amos maybe even he's big enough now where he could even play linebacker. When did you kind of put that on the drawing board, and how serious is a possibility of that?
I think really, Bob, from the time the end of the season till now, we've talked about a lot of different scenarios. He'll be a safety for us, but can he do some things down in the box, even as a safety? Which means maybe you got to play a little bit more post safety coverage, which is hard in this league with some really good outside receivers. So, and again, it all comes down to the health. Can Obeng do that? Can Obeng go down and play some will linebacker and things like that? We kind of sit in there and we just talk about different scenarios. And I know John Butler does it a lot more than I do with the defense. And I think they've got a lot of different scenarios covered, and so we'll see. We may not have to do that, but if we do, I think we'll train him to do all that this training camp.
Bill, the way teams are spread it out, will make it more conducive to playing?
It's a good point. I think that, if you go back to my last year in the NFL, when we self-scouted at New England, I think almost like 70% of the time we were in nickel defense. Because it's a receiver, it's a quarterback league, and it's similar in the Big Ten. You've got great quarterbacks, really good skilled receivers, and so there is a little bit more nickel defense being played where you can have a fifth DB in there. So do we have some guys that can do that? Again, Mike Hull is a very good cover linebacker, and so we would keep him in there. But could we maneuver somebody else in there and substitute for some other linebacker? Who knows? So. We'll cover all those scenarios this summer, though.
Bill, John Urschel's supposed to speak tomorrow on behalf of Big Ten players at the banquet. What are you expecting from John in his address?
I don't know. I flew with him here today. What a great kid. I flew with Malcolm Willis and Glenn Carson. Great kids. I don't know. I know that it'll be a good speech. It'll be well thought out. He was actually, probably memorizing it on the plane today, which is incredible. But it looked like a lot of pages. I was like, John, you might want to cut that down. But what a fantastic kid. I think a lot has been made about his academic prowess, but I think again we have to be reminded here that he's a hell of a football player. He's a first-team All Big Ten guard, which in this conference that's a big deal. So, and he's got a chance to play pro football. So, that he's just as good a football player as he is a student. He really is.
Bill, when you said last week on our call that you would hope that the NCAA would meet you halfway,
Right.
what else do you think Penn State has to do for that to happen?
I don't know, Rich. Again, I said my piece last week. I'm really focused on the team now. I really think those are questions that are more for President Erickson and Dr. Joyner. I know that we're being very compliant. We've had, in the 19 months that I've been there, we've had, I think, 4 meetings with our compliance department, each 3 hours long, to make sure we understand the rules. I know we have a coaching staff of high character guys that do things the right way. Are we perfect? No. Have we sent a text message that wasn't proper? Yeah, but we report it right away. So that's all I know, and now I just really want to focus on the team.
From a practical standpoint, though, Bill, when does that the ability to transfer end? Is that the very first day of practice, or
August 1st.
And is that some sort of, in a weird way, a milestone to get to be like, take a deep breath?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the question, but I felt for a long time now, I felt very confident about our players' commitment to us and our commitment to our players. I think our players, there's a lot of respect between the coaches and the players. We're not friends, we're not their friends, but there's just a lot of respect. And so I don't really think about that much. I understand the milestone type because of, that date, but I haven't thought about that transfer deal really since the season started last year. I felt like those were the guys that were committed to us.
You said in there that everybody's in a better mood this year. In some ways, do you
At
feel,
this point in time, right?
In some ways, do you feel like the way everybody at Penn State has handled it, including the players, that you've been a little bit of a model to show the rest of the country how to handle adversity?
That's a good point, Corey. I think I spoke at this wrestling camp yesterday, and there was a bunch of little kids, and if the 2012 team taught us anything, it taught us about, including me, it taught us about how to handle things that aren't in your control. You don't have any control over certain things in your life, and how do you handle that? How do you pick yourself up and keep moving forward? And regardless of the record or whatever, that's what that team and those group of leaders taught us. And so, yeah, maybe there's something to be said, but we got to continue to do it. We can't just say, okay, that was great. Now what do? We have to every day we got to lay another brick on top of the other one and continue to do things the right way, which hopefully we will do.
Bill, your senior class last year was pretty incredible when it came to leadership and off-field. How's this year's senior class compare?
Joe, it's funny. People ask me that a lot, and we did. We had a great senior class that we'll always remember the rest of my coaching career. I'll always remember those guys and be indebted to them. But we have a very, very strong group of leaders on our team. We have guys that have played a lot of football for us, but we also have guys like Ty Howell that maybe hasn't played a lot of football for us, but is a really tough leader. Strong guy in the weight room, and is going to be our starting center. So we have guys like that that we know are going to be good leaders for us. Guys that maybe you don't know too much about, but we do in the building. So we feel good about our leadership this year.
On the other end of that, Bill, the freshman class that stuck with you.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about them? And I know you don't get to see them play, but are there certain positions where you can see a lack of depth that you may have to get those guys in there?
Yeah, first of all, when I talk about the kids that committed to us, I include that recruiting class because, again, most of those kids, except for a couple of kids, stayed committed to us. Top recruits that were getting recruited by a lot of different schools, and they stuck with us. That says a lot about those kids, those parents. It says a lot about Penn State. It says a lot about our coaching staff. As far as their positions, there are some guys. Obviously Christian will be in the thick of that quarterback battle. Can Brandon Bell, can he do something for us at linebacker? We've got a lot of guys in that class, run-ons and scholarship players that we think might be able to help us on special teams. So we'll have to judge that pretty early on in training camp to see who is picking it up fast, who can, all freshmen hit that wall, who climbs the wall and gets to where they need to be. So, we'll just have to judge that. That's something I can probably answer better in a couple weeks.
Bill, how much of a shot will the run-ons? I'm sorry.
Right. That was something my last couple of years in the NFL. Guys were getting fined quite a bit for head-to-head contact, and I thought that Bill Belichick did a great job of coming into the meeting the next day, and whether it was our team or another team, and teaching these guys what that player did wrong and how to correct that, how to hit with your shoulder and not lead with your head. So I'm going to do that at the beginning of training camp, like have some clips on, hey look, if you lead with your head and you make contact head to head, you're going to get thrown out. And try to teach these kids how to tackle with their shoulder and things like that. But at the end of the day, I would say that it comes down to a judgment call on the field by the officials. So what we do there is we have really good officials that come in during training camp and officiate some of our scrimmages, and they speak to our team at night, and we'll ask them questions about exactly what they're going to be looking for. So that's how I would answer that question.
Bill, do you see any run-ons maybe competing for spots on the depth chart?
I do. I don't want to give you the specific names right now, but I do. I see some guys there that we recruited. That we expect to come in here and hopefully be in good condition. And can they run down on the kickoff team for us? Can they long snap? Can they be the personal protector on the punt team? Can they go block a punt? Yeah, that's. I think there's some candidates to be able to do that in this class.
How valuable?
True freshman run-ons?
Yeah, and again, we'll have to. I think those are good questions for me about halfway through training camp.
How valuable are those guys in practice? Brian Kelly said last week that the difference between Notre Dame and Alabama was players 86 through 105 last year. So your guys 66 through 100. Yeah. How valuable are those guys to push your starters in practice every day?
Anytime you have the younger part of your roster, I hate to say the bottom half, that's not what I mean. I mean the younger part of your roster that you think is pretty talented, that's going to make up your dirty show teams, that's going to help your football team. That's going to help you practice. That's going to give you better competition on the scout teams. That's one thing we're going to do during the season. What we're going to try to do is on Monday, Sundays will be the players' mandatory day off, and on Mondays, when the guys that played in the Saturday game, when they go to condition on Monday night at the end, we're going to have a younger developmental type scrimmage with our younger players and film it and let the GAs call the plays, see how they do, see how the players do, and watch it and see if we can get these guys to be better along the lines of a practice squad in the NFL. That's one thing we're going to try to do this year and hopefully get that depth to improve. So, yeah, that's something that does make your team better.
Bill, did you know Urban Meyer before coaching the Big Ten? Did you know him at all?
No, I wouldn't say well. I had met him. He was a wide receiver coach at Notre Dame, and I was the running back coach at Georgia Tech, and we played in the Gator Bowl. I don't know. He probably wouldn't even remember this, but I remember it. And I met him there. Yeah, great coach, great career. It's a league full of fantastic. I mean, I just been talking to this morning with Brady Hoke, and he's just a fantastic coach, and I just have a lot of respect for him. So, we got a lot of great. Kirk Ferentz, is a really good coach. Up and down the line, we got great coaches in this league.
Urban was asked a lot of questions about off-the-field stuff that's happened in Florida and out of Ohio State. Is sometimes coaches get too much criticism, or any thoughts on maybe some of the criticism he's gotten?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts on that. I just know that at Penn State, we try our best to recruit high character guys that we think are going to go to class, and if we make a mistake, we try to rectify that mistake. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We try our best to run a disciplined program, and really that's what we try to do at Penn State.